Okay, great. Well, we're going to start out right away just going ahead and thinking about if you have a business and you want to start it or grow it or make it more efficient or make it more profitable, what are the things you have to consider? So if we're looking at a business, we've got, what are the things you're doing basically in a portrait photography business? And not just portrait, but we're going to focus on that. You are shooting, right? You're editing slash, whether you do post-processing or you're just backing them up or whatever the case may be. You are selling them and you're delivering. Okay, so these are the things that you're doing as a portrait photographer, yes? Mm-hmm. But what else? And we're going to step through this, like exactly what else, because this, and I love that we have time for this, because normally if I'm doing workshops, I say, yes, these are the main things in your business, but look at all the other things you have to do. And what I suggest is you go home, get a whiteboard, and make this more efficient. I say it longer than that with more detail, and it's usually just very well said. No, just kidding. But what we get to do here is actually whiteboard it out. And I would love, especially if you're watching at home, if you can follow along and think about your own business as we go through this, because we're going to step through kind of everything that has to happen and figure out how to make it more efficient, smarter, faster, less redundant effort, and more profitable. So one of the first things you're doing, let's see. Okay, you're shooting, but what are you doing before you're shooting?
You have to get the client.
You have to get the client. So you're marketing. Go ahead and throw these things out, because I'm going to say them as I'm thinking them too.
Blogging.
You're gathering inquiries. You're responding. So then you have to send out pricing, right? So you're developing pricing. And then do you make one price list when you start a business and leave it that way?
Nope.
So you're constantly updating pricing and products. Can anybody read my horrible handwriting?
Yes.
Okay. I was so proud. We had my third grader's first review, and when I was growing up in school, I did very well in school, but I always failed handwriting. Like they just said, she can't write, and she did all the way across beautifully except for handwriting.
Oh, she's your kid.
Okay, so you're shooting, you're editing, so you're doing your backup, right? You're doing very safe backup. So you're backing up, I would strongly suggest, to a minimum of 3 places. And what I do is I back everything up to my photo server, which we have gone ahead and purchased a studio-wide photo server that is wireless and that you can back up every single thing you do, whether it's all the pricing models we do, all the documents we send out to our clients, the contracts we create, the photographs we take. They're all backed up originally, as well as the final images we deliver to the client. Then we also back them up to external hard drives. They, of course, are going onto the laptop for a limited amount of time, because if you keep them on there too long, they kill your RAM. They kill your memory. And then we're putting them onto DVDs and storing those either in the studio or offsite for your disaster recovery. I know other people who upload all their work to a cloud of some sort, so they can have an additional source of disaster recovery system. That's another thing that everybody should be doing, is some sort of disaster recovery program. The first time I thought that I had to do a disaster recovery program, I thought it involved like drills and some sort of orange jacket or something. I was like, this is going to be a lot of work. No, that's just store something somewhere else, so that if something happens, there's a flood, there's a fire, you get robbed, or there's a major, some sort of computer crash, you have either DVDs in a box in your home or at your friend's home or wherever, or you have them backed up to some sort of third-party cloud where you can save them on an FTP server somewhere. So backup, minimum of 3 times before I ever clear them from the card. Can you see what we're going to do here? We're going to kind of make this all involved. So we're going to talk about all the steps, and then I'm going to give you suggestions that I do. And I would love it if you guys could shout out suggestions that you have, or things that have worked for you, or questions you have as we're going through this. So what else? When you're selling and delivering, you've got to think about packaging, right? How are you packaging your products? Did you have something, Kenna?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say there are things coming in from the internet as well. Going back to marketing within that, but branding specifically.
Branding, yep.
With regard to the pre-shooting.
Yep.
And SEO would be in there, I would
Brand building,
And
building.
then from Monica
Website.
in the chat room is working on workflow processes for the client experience from first contact to delivery and follow-up. So
Say it one more time.
from Monica in the chat room, working on workflow processes for the client experience from first contact to delivery and follow-up. So maybe that's just client CRM or client
How do you
management.
track your client throughout the whole thing? Yeah. So that is basically, your customer management system. What kind of client management or customer management system do you have in place? I've talked to people who say this, and they hold up a notebook with a spiral and pencil. And I was like, as fast as you're going to grow, that's going to become exhausting to track. I strongly suggest one central repository for everything where you can track the clients you call, the inquiries that come in, anybody that you're going to add to your database, the invoices that you're going to send out, all the purchases they make, the history that you have with this client, any sort of data you have about the client in terms of kids and their names and their ages. You can do either that separately from some sort of financial system, like a QuickBooks, or you can have an all-in-one program. Good customer management systems that are out there include, I'm just going to list them that I know of. And as I list them, I'm going to say that not one of these systems that I'm about to announce is like the one I think is awesome. There's ones I use, there's ones I've checked out, there's ones I've tried. I don't know, I think that we're still working on a system that has it all smooth, But so there's Successware, which is the system that we've used to date in our studio. The pros and cons. The pros of it is that you have all that information I just talked about in one central location. You can use it in a multi-client environment, which means that if there's 8 people or 10 people in your studio, everybody can access that software and share data. Which is how we use it. Then you can also have a financial reporting system built into that, which has a bookkeeping function. So any of the invoices you send out, any of the expenses that come in, any sort of reconciliation you do at year end, which I should be writing down. Can somebody jump up in here and write for me? Joy, will you jump in here and write for me? Joy Bianchi Brown.
Hey, woo, Joy.
And I never fail in handwriting. I have great handwriting.
So this is working out. You're going to see the transition from like, So we're talking about financial systems. All the thing you've got to think about.
Spelling is something else, but handwriting good.
All the financial stuff you've got to think about, whether it comes to invoicing, reporting, sales tax, quarterly payments to a federal tax, any sort of expense tracking, bank statement reconciliation. We're going to throw all this down. I'm not trying to overwhelm with all the details, but we're going to throw it all down so we can smooth it out.
Just a quick comment from Jules, Joy's sister, in the chat room. She's saying she loves your dress.
And do you have a software that you recommend?
So it's going back to that. So Successware is the one that we use that has a lot of this put together. The cons I find is there's sometimes so much to a system, and you've got to look at what kind of support you have. So if you need, kind of to be able to circle back and things like that. And you also have, from a bookkeeping perspective, any sort of proprietary system that's in place is going to have a hard time keeping up with an accounting-only software. It's just because they're doing 40 things, and they can't be incredibly robust in every specific part of the application. And so it's not the same, you don't have the same flexibility with maybe just a QuickBooks system where you can report, a cross-section of information 100 different ways. So there are things that you kind of give up a little bit. So if you're a business that you want to outsource the bookkeeping, which I strongly recommend, unless you have an obsession with numbers and bookkeeping and tracking. We put bookkeeping and accounting in there. The other thing I want to say is paying your quarterly federal taxes, as well as your monthly or quarterly state taxes, and being able to account for that appropriately. Oh, there's an eraser here. So the thing that you sacrifice with some sort of proprietary accounting system is that when you hire a bookkeeper from another service or an individual, they have to come in and learn your system, as opposed to adding you onto the books with 5 or 6 other clients and working remotely via very popular accounting software like QuickBooks. When you're looking at something like QuickBooks, there's two ways you can go. One is on the package that you have installed and is right for you. The other is a web-based QuickBooks. That's a nice solution if you're hiring a bookkeeper and you want to be able to manage your business and have them do the bookkeeping remotely and not have to worry about transitioning back and forth, or I made these changes here and you made these changes here. They can all be done kind of virtually on the fly with a web-based system. The downside is that the web-based QuickBooks is not as robust as the package QuickBooks yet. So just little things to keep in mind.
The other downside is that QuickBooks is not supported on a Mac in Canada.
QuickBooks is not supported on a Mac in Canada.
QuickBooks does not make a Mac program in Canada.
They're Canadist.
They are. They are.
That's
you
not
have
right.
to run Parallels on your Mac and then run QuickBooks on that, and it's not very stable. So we actually have what we call our QuickBooks machine, which is a PC laptop. And it's like a $300 PC laptop. That is our QuickBooks machine.
That's not fair to you.
It is not.
You're a victim.
I am a victim.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
And also for that,
Got your back, Canada.
For all that, also that stuff, like I was thinking, like insurance on your equipment, liability insurance, business licenses, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. As you guys are saying, how do you set up your company? Is it an LLC? Is it a sole proprietorship? Is it a C Corp? You've got to think about all that right away. That's something I wouldn't suggest putting off too long, unless, of course, you're very comfortable with sole proprietorship and are planning to hang out there. The other accounting softwares that are out there are, let's see, what else is there? There's ShootQ, which I believe is more wedding-based than portrait. Does it? Okay, because I've heard, maybe people can weigh in on that. There's ShootQ, and then I like the people behind ShootQ, which was just bought out by Pictage as well, and they're working in tandem. And I like the people behind Pictage. I mean, literally the people. I really like them.
Somebody in the chat room has mentioned Light Blue software.
Light blue software, okay.
Sugar.
Sugar?
Are we talking about software? Yeah, okay. There's also Tave, Studio Cloud.
Yeah, Studio Cloud. I was gonna
Studio Cloud's another one.
What's the price on like approximately like the price point on a program like that? Like, are you looking in the hundreds or the thousands? What's your?
Is it
So-
like a monthly?
So everybody does it different. Some are a purchase, some are subscription. Most are subscription. Successware is subscription.
So ShootQ.
So
they're
ShootQ,
like-
and we're talking about $75 a month,
Oh, okay, so like an
$120 a
affordable
month.
subscription, okay.
Yeah, somewhere around there. ShootQ is what, 60 a month?
It's closer to 40, and then they also have a partnership with Pictage where you can do a 2-for-1 or something like that.
Yeah, so we have that going on.
So Sugar was Sugar CRM. From
Sugar
Ken.
CRM, okay, yeah. And then if you want to do something that's even stepped up and not necessarily industry specific, if you have a large studio and you have a lot going on, you could look at something like Salesforce, which is a massive CRM system that can be kind of sized down based on your industry needs. There is also, I'm sure people are going to write in with us, other studio management options. Say Tave, ShootQ, Studio Cloud, Successware,
BlinkBid.
BlinkBit?
Bid.
BlinkBid.
That was from
Can you talk
Ross.
a little bit about the function of this software for folks who haven't heard about, like, what does this do?
So this is basically the housing for all your customer data. So if you are on the phone, you take an inquiry, and somebody says, yes, my name is Leslie Mann, and I like her, she's really fun. And I want to do a portrait session with my family, and I might say, pull up, in all truth, my studio manager will do this, pull up the application and say, okay, great, Leslie. I'm so excited that you called our studio. Just out of curiosity, how did you hear about us? Who referred you to us or whatever? Then you have a section there where you can do a drop-down box of, I saw an ad, I was at a friend's house, I heard you on the radio, whatever the case may be. And you immediately now have a tracking system to see how your marketing's working. You immediately have a tracking system to see how your marketing, ooh, something shiny. And you're able to.
Call me out like that on that. Thanks, Tamara.
I'm talking to Jesse, and he's like, What are they doing over there? That looks
Poor
really
Jesse
interesting.
gets called out on everything.
So you have a way basically of, and the reason I think this is important is because this goes back to marketing. Like what kind of marketing you do, what kind of plan do you have in place? It's not very helpful to put a marketing plan out and then fly blind. Like what worked? This is a great way to find out what's working. If I put an ad in a regional parent magazine and everybody I ask, 100% this is never ever referenced, it never comes up, nobody's ever seen it, I'm not going to continue that ad. So this is one of the great ways of having a central repository. So you can not only track their specific information, what are your names, what's your phone number, what's your email, how many children do you have, what are their names, what are their birth dates, all that sort of stuff. You have additional marketing information. Now you can say, it pops up in the system that Jimmy turns 3 tomorrow. Let me send out maybe a tailored marketing message saying, congratulations on Jimmy's 3rd birthday, time for a portrait session, or however you want to do it. You also have an ability to track where that client is in the process. So right now you're at the inquiry stage. Then you're at the client session book stage. Then you're at the did the shoot, waiting for the sales consult. Now I've ordered these items, and X of them are in and X of them are not in. So it adds a whole order to what you're doing. And whether you're a single person working out of one space completely on your own, or you're a shared environment, this is a great tracking information to have.
Another place where you can keep it is Photo One.
Photo One?
I don't really prefer that,
Yep.
but it is one of them. Just
Okay. Yeah, I mean, keep them coming. Any suggestions from the internet or here?
We use, my husband's Mr. Systems person.
Uh-huh.
And so we use Google Apps with our Gmail.
Okay.
Because there's so many apps that are in there that are free. I use Tungle for all my booking. So people just sign in. If they want to book a session, I have all my times available, and I have windows to get there built in and stuff.
Right.
And they just sign in and look at my calendar and can book their time in themselves.
Yep.
And so and it's all free, right? So
Right.
for me, that's what we use.
That works with your pricing.
Because my pricing at $550 requires me to use a lot of free stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So in saying that, maybe I would like a little more.
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing too, is you can have websites that are modified to have your calendars online and have the bookings sent for you and put into some sort of central repository for you to access. The thing that the reason why I believe some sort of system in place is important, regardless of which one you choose, is because if you're tracking things on pencil and paper, or just by memory, or I've seen a lot of people do it with Excel spreadsheets, you're going to basically lose all your ability to really access that information and cross-reference it to get the data that you want to grow your business and solidify and keep your costs down and make sure you're marketing in the right places. And being able to look at something all together and say, okay, yeah, this is why it works. This is why I'm going to go forward here. This is why I'm not going to do that. That's why I'm going to price this product at this level. I know that Successware has something built in that allows you to do projections. So in the next year, these are my goals. I'm going to have sales this many times, this many portrait sessions. I want to have this many books. I want to sell this many, et cetera. And you can put your projections out there and evaluate that, okay, in 2011, I'm going to make this many dollars. And I need to put a marketing plan in place so that I can do it, and I can do checkpoints every month and see how I'm doing and where I'm going and where my expenses are going. Tracking your expenses is gigantor. It's a huge, huge thing, being able to see where your money's going and recognize that at the end of the month, I just paid $986 at Starbucks. How did I do that? These little onesie, twosie expenses are the worst. If you don't see where things are going and you don't understand how you're bleeding them, or you don't recognize that some of the products you're buying are too expensive for the market. And I've had relationships with vendors where I've called them and just said, you know what, I'm recognizing that the pricing I'm paying right now is a little out of line. I just looked at 3 other vendors and I realized I'm paying a little bit much in this area. If they care about you and they're going to want to keep you, you can work with them on things. If not, then you start kind of looking around and seeing, what other options might be better for me and keep my expenses more in line. On the flip side, when we're talking about pricing, so developing pricing is up here. Specifically, how do you develop your pricing list? I would suggest, silence. How do you develop your pricing list? How did you guys, one person just volunteer how you built your pricing list?
I'll just say, I totally was okay, I need to get people to actually want me to take their photos. So I started at for $200, you get it all. And then I was like, good Lord, that is not working for me. I am so poor. And then from there I was like, okay, $300. And then it was well, I want to up my prices more than that. So instead of, I added something I do my little stop motion videos. It's my signature thing, right?
Yep.
So because that takes me an hour to put together. So and for the hour, I upped my price $200 and was okay. So I'll do 8 hours of work versus 7.
So kind of an iterative process.
Yeah, and
you did this, you did this, you did this. Okay. Allison. Oh, sorry.
A lot of comparing with other people in the market.
So you looked around and saw what everyone else was doing?
Yes.
Okay. Which is a really common way to do that.
Yeah, and then just, I don't know. I think my pricing needs help.
Okay. Sarah?
I looked at what a professional studio photographer in the mall was charging
Okay.
and went really low compared to that because I was starting out.
Okay.
And I haven't really done anything to it since. I really need to look at that.
Okay.
I went high compared to everybody.
All right, so
I
what I was doing,
checked
and you
out
went a
the
little bit higher.
market and went a little bit higher because I felt confident with like where,
awesomeness?
yeah. Come on. No, but I felt like I put in the time of doing free shoots for people and doing,
Right.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
when I really wanted to get it together, I'm like, okay, I'm going to see what everyone's doing, kind of judge myself against them. I know that sounds horrible.
No,
But, and just kind of went, okay, I'm going to go in kind of high at the market because maybe it's like a perceived value thing or,
Okay.
I don't know.
No, and none of those are wrong answers. I think the idea of looking around, seeing what everyone else is doing, and pricing yourself accordingly is a very common way to get started. But the one thing that you miss out on a little bit, and I would suggest that maybe when you go back and look at your prices, it sounds like a lot of you are looking to revise your pricing, is thank you. Exactly. So if you're sitting down and you're thinking, what's my cost of sales? So maybe a print is $4. An 8x10 is $4 or whatever at your lab. But if any of my clients are watching, that's not true. No, say a price, your 8x10 is $4. You add a luster coating. Okay, that's maybe another $1. You add a mounting. Okay, now I'm in the $15 range, depending on whatever the product is that you get and what you choose to do with it. Then you have to think about, of course, the value of your time. How much time did I get in on that one print? And I don't mean like the time that you pulled it up in the ordering system, you looked at it, you did your tweaks, and then you send it, those 4 minutes. I mean the entirety of your time that you worked on that session and how it relates to the products that were purchased. So,
in your analysis, how long does a typical 2-hour shoot take for your studio?
For my analysis purposes, I would say that if I'm turning around a 2-hour session, and again, you got to think about
Everything.
all of it.
The whole-
Yeah.
Start to finish.
Yeah. It's probably about 8 hours. It's probably about 8 hours. And that's being honest because I want to say it's 3-4 hours, you know. I knock it out, I get the processing, But no, I've got to evaluate the time that I'm paying my studio manager to manage the inquiries and put all that together and all those efforts. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And I want to take a percentage of the amount of time I spent on marketing, on website development, on branding, on accounting, everything. And that's all going to be factored in. And then I think, okay, how much time does it come to that one shoot? And if I do less shoots and spend a lot of time on them, then obviously that's extra as well. Because you have to, one of the things you want to go back and look at is decide if your business is low volume and high cost, or is it high volume and lower cost, if we can put that up there, making that consideration. Because you have to know that about your business before you can even figure out how to build a brand. You have to know how you're being perceived in your market. So back to the question about your pricing. If that 8x10 is a cost from your lab of $15, but there's another, gosh, I probably spend another of my time and how much money I want to make an hour and I think is fair. Okay, so that's actually about $40. So it's about $40 for that 8x10. And if I want to think of a good markup for my cost of goods sold is about 33% or so. What do I decide for myself I want it to be? Then you multiply, for the sake of easy math, let's say it's 30% times 3. So I want that $40 print to be $120. And then that for me is my price of an 8x10. To start with. That's where I feel like, okay, I've covered my cost of goods sold. I feel like I'm doing good business. I'm making up the expenses I spent, and I'm being paid for the immense amount of time and effort I put into this. But then again, the responsibility is on me is I have to care about everything I put into that print. That's the part that I don't want missed in this, because all that stuff I've been talking about for 2 days, 4 days, however long ago we started filming, that's where we're in that kind of final push.
The other thing is that translates right back into sales, because if you know why your print costs that much, you don't have to justify why
You
your
don't
print-
feel weird.
Yeah, and you're like, well, this is why this costs this much, because I put all these things into this, and so it all feeds back into
How
itself.
much do you communicate
you
that
get
to
one.
your client as far as,
Yeah, I feel like clients often are like, that's really high for an 8x10.
Okay, so twofold. One, I feel really comfortable talking to how much I really care about that print, all the work we put into it, all the effort we can't put into it. And when we're going to get into the work-life balance thing, as soon as I had the realization, because I did spend the first couple of years really underpricing for what I was doing and not doing a very good job of managing the whole process. as soon as I got into really thinking about if I weren't spending time on this print and really perfecting it and making sure that everything's in place and locking down the framing and all that sort of thing, then every ounce of time I spend there, I'm not with my children. I'm not with the people I love. I'm not going on dates. That was for you, Steve. So, it's the idea that you've got to really consider all of that because there's an expense at place here, and the expense is your time and spending it with the people that you care about. And I feel really comfortable justifying my prices when I think about it from that angle. I'm like, so if somebody says to me, really, I have to pay 100 and whatever for an 8x10, I'm like, really? I missed an hour at that thing last night because I stayed up working on this. I feel really comfortable about that.
What's the verbiage you use when you interact with a client about that price?
Give me a statement that I would respond to.
exactly
Give me an
that.
honest statement that you think a client would genuinely say.
Wow, that's expensive.
Wow, that's expensive.
Like, really?
Like, I don't know
that
many
much
people
for
that
an
would be
8x10?
willing,
It's
like,
I can get that at Walgreens for $1
When am I having that conversation?
in sale.
I don't think you.
I'm not going to have that
right?
conversation in
Because people
sales
are
because
gonna-
they've gone on my website, they've called, they've talked, they got our pricing sheet before we ever started even talking about putting them on the books. So they have an idea. So if when they get that pricing sheet,
Right.
they say to me, oh my gosh, that's really expensive. I can get an 8x10 for $4 at Walgreens. I'll say, and I don't say, go to Walgreens. I don't say that. Again, I'm respectful of the fact that everybody has a different mindset about this. I will say to them, oh, okay, I understand that. Well, we put a lot of effort and work, and we really value the work we produce. And if you change your mind, you want to come back, we would love to talk to you. But of course, from an efficiency perspective, I understand that that was not the client for me. Because the last thing I want to do is sit there and justify my efforts every single time. When I could be spending it with another client who completely values it, who dies over the prints, who tells me at the end that this was so important, and makes sure they book me again in the next 9 months to a year, and has that going and is excited and tells all their friends how much they love it. Like, why would I be spending all this effort here trying to talk someone into something that's not the right fit for them?
So do you send them is there any of your pricing information online, or they have to inquire with you
There's
first?
none of my pricing information is online,
Okay.
but when they call, we say right away.
Is there a reason it's not online?
It just doesn't seem to fit with what I care for them to know about me.
And you don't say packages
Truly.
start at? You don't even have nothing?
No, but we say that immediately when they call. And partly there's twofold. When I say it doesn't fit with what I care for them to know about me, is when somebody comes to my website, which is going to be brand new in 2 weeks, and I wish it were brand new now. When they come to specifically my galleries, and they're looking through, and they're stepping through my images, and they're seeing them full screen, and they see what I'm producing. I want them to be mostly thinking, I want those images of my children, of my family, in my home. I don't want them thinking, that's a nice print, exactly what's the cost of it to me? Because then again, just like when I'm shooting, I need to nail my technicals and get out of my head so I can be in my heart with them. When they're looking at my images, I don't want them to be in their head calculating dollars. I want them to be in their heart thinking, I love that.
So for us that don't have office managers or whatever,
Yeah, that's my question
Which I didn't
too.
for the first couple years of my
have, like-
business.
I just, like, even now, even with my pricing online, I get people calling me like, okay, well, my budget's $100. Do you think I could get family photos for that? And I'm like, what do you think I am? Like, and my pricing
Yes,
is
of course you can.
and my pricing is online,
At the
right?
mall.
What do you think I am? I am your girl. That's who I am.
I totally wish I didn't have to put my pricing online because I totally grasp the concept behind that. But I don't have time to be fielding phone calls and emails 12 a day being like, so could I get 20 prints and a canvas and all the photos on a disc for $100?
Okay, so this goes into
How do you do
website
that?
development and brand development. And setting expectations. So when you're up here, where are we with website development?
Here's website development brand.
Okay, so if we're at website development and brand development, have you ever gone to a website where you look at the images, you look at the branding, and it looks just kind of flat and a little efficient and budget friendly? You feel like you have some sort of sense of what that's going to cost.
I feel I have a great website though.
I'm not talking about your website.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, even though I have like a great brand and whatnot, I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, I still get $100 inquiries at least 3 times a week.
I'm not saying you don't get the inquiries.
Yeah.
I'm saying that if somebody calls in, they have a sense of what the product's going to be and where the sales are and stuff from the branding that you put out, for the high-end kind of rich branding you put out. And let's say, for instance, you're walking down the street and you see a lush, gorgeous spa, and it looks very rich, and it looks substantial, and you walk in and it feels good, and everything's smooth, and there's marble everywhere, and do you expect that you're going to walk up and they're going to say, yes, massages are $8?
No.
That wouldn't kind of fit. But if you're walking past a tent on the side of the road and there was a table there and a sheet laid down and somebody, half naked, just kind of throwing Vaseline on your back, you might not, you would be shocked that would be a $200 or whatever, So there's an expectation you set simply by the look and feel of your brand.
Right.
So that's point number one, about the fact that this brand development, website development, SEO is not where you want to be skimping when you think about where do I want to put my dollars. I would rather pour all my money into the look and feel of my online storefront than my physical storefront.
Right.
Okay, so do you think that it's possible when you're working out of your home that you can have a brand that says, hey, this is going to be expensive, I'm going to be putting an investment here, but they're working out of their home? Do you feel like people ever get like...
I know. I can think of like 5 amazing photographers, that pull in, crazy pricing. I almost said a bad word there. Crazy pricing, and work out of their home, work in their basement, work in their mom's kitchen.
But you said that you would not, that your online storefront, you wouldn't put as much money into your home storefront? I mean, your studio?
I'm saying if someone gave me, here's $500, do I put it into the look and feel of my website or the way my front door of my studio works? It's all on my website.
But there is some merit to the feeling of when they walk into the
look and
studio.
feel. But if I have to make a choice and it's one or the other, it's got to be a website.
I got that.
Which most people who are starting out have
I'm not
to
saying
make that
don't do a
choice.
thing to the place that your clients visit you. That's a whole different topic. But I'm saying if it's a choice, because that's where everybody, that's where we live now. Look, where are we?
That's like your front line.
The web.
Yeah, where are we? We're online now.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where you are found most of the time. And even if it's a word of mouth referral or an old school marketing effort or a promo card they find, usually there's a call made or there's a website checked out before a call's made. Mm-hmm. What were you going to say?
No, I was just saying most people who are newer in the business have to make that choice.
Yeah. And I would strongly advise that you make that choice because I've seen it reverse. I've seen, and you guys probably have too, where someone has a beautiful studio and everything's good and they're working on their website, they'll get to it. But the website in no way reflects the kind of lushness of their business. And there's a loss there. There's an inconsistent message. And branding is all about consistent messaging. So if you're going to roll out like a logo and a website and the look and feel of your space and you're going to have an idea of what your persona is with your clients because that's part of your brand, that all needs to be consistent. So if you go to my website and it looks lush and gorgeous and well done, which it will in about 2 weeks. I mean, I like my current one.
It looks good now, too.
I like my current one, but I love the one coming out. Look at me building all this expectation, setting expectations. But if you put, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I literally spent more on my website this year than pretty much anything else I've budgeted for in terms of where the dollars are going. But if you think about the fact that you go to my website and you think it's beautiful and it's carefully done, there's a lot of effort, that there's no typos on any of my verbiage, that I've got my margins in the right spaces, and the images are finished when they're up, and all of that sort of thing. And then you see my promo card and it looks gorgeous. And then you walk in to my studio and it's wonderful and you're in the waiting room. And then I come out and ripped off, cut off Daisy Dukes and some sort of really tight, tube top. And I have like an Instamatic. And I'm like, what's up? I mean, that's going to be very confusing. It's not going to fit. So I'm just saying you need to kind of take it all the way across. When I think about your persona, that's part of it, is kind of buying into it,
Don't forget the cowboy hat.
And the cowboy hat with a straw.
Maybe a Budweiser.
No, a piece of hay.
Budweiser, no, I don't
Gotta
know a
get
beer
like the
drinker.
hay. A Twizzler straw.
A Twizzler, absolutely, a Twizzler cigar.
So if you don't have a sort of a place in your studio or in your house or somewhere to do your business meeting and you go to a coffee shop, what would you take as your portfolio? Would you take like a printed book with all your images or?
That's what I did. So that's exactly what I did. Nowadays I take an iPad.
Okay.
But what I did in the past was take a physical portfolio and kind of flip through it and kind of talk to a little bit my work. And then I upgraded to a Cypress showbox. You ever seen this? Cypress has these fine art show boxes where they're fitted for 11 by 14 mats, and it's this linen, beautiful box with a ribbon around it that you open up and you pull out matted prints. So they're 8 by 10 images on 11 by 14 matting, and you take them out one at a time. And I found early on that by speaking to my work was the same thing I get now, where my website's in a place that I like, and I'll still do some of that with client consultations, especially with weddings and stuff, is I'll show a print and I'll talk to how it was made. And I'll talk to the experience of making it, the interaction with the child or the family, what I was looking for when I made it, why I composed it the way I composed it, why I treated it the way I treated it. And by the end of that, like 5 or 6 minute overview looking at this one image, they may initially say, I like that. And at the end, they're like, I love that. Because you're showing them everything that goes into it. And if I've done that several times in a row, and I'm talking about, if I kind of carry that through the entire relationship, and it feels professional, it feels like an honest exchange, it feels like I truly, truly want to give them these beautiful images, when I sit down in the sales consult, it's going to be very strange for them to say, why is this so expensive? It goes back to setting client expectations.
I guess I'm not so much worried about like the surprise, it's expensive, as much as I'm worried about how to get someone in to begin with. Like, none of my friends.
How do you build your market?
Lead generation stuff?
Yeah, but none of my friends, especially because I'm a little younger, would ever spend $120 on an 8 by 10. Even though.
You don't have to market to your friends.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, in general, like the people that I know, like, I think it's hard to find people that are willing to spend that much money, but they still value good photos of their family. Mm-hmm. They just literally can't do it.
Okay, so let's think about a few strategies that you might want to consider from a market perspective, from a marketing, building up my business, bringing in clients, kind of starting from either ground zero or a level that you don't want to be at, and you're looking to move into a new level. So one of the first things to consider if you have no money, because I know that came in a lot.
Go ahead. I meant this word, lead generation stuff.
Okay, yeah. One of the things to consider when you have no money or very, very little money and you're in a tough economy is the age-old guerrilla marketing. Anybody do a lot of studying about guerrilla marketing? Yeah, and I don't mean guerrilla. Craig, you want to jump in and talk to it? No, you seem very excited about that.
Not myself, but I like marketing.
He likes marketing. He loves marketing. You're good at marketing. Guerrilla marketing is the adage that just like when we went out and did the budget design challenge and we spent a lot of time and physical effort and thought process and creativity building things so we could save money. There was a trade-off there. You could either spend a lot of money and buy it done or have someone do it for you, or you do it yourself, or you got to figure out what the middle ground is. It's the same thing with marketing. You can either pay a marketing agency to go out and put together a really beautiful plan that's got a digital strategy in place and it's got everything locked down and it's about $240,000 for phase one. You could do that, or you could say that's not really where my budget is and I want to do this myself. A lot of great guerrilla marketing tactics involve things like really pushing the word of mouth referrals, so telling everybody you know what you do, handing out, it used to be your business card, now I'd say you bump your iPhone or whatever the case may be. Word of mouth, we're going to get back to that because that's just so gigantor. That's such a massive, massive component of brilliant marketing. It's the number one source of referrals I have is word of mouth. Another option in terms of that, excuse me, the 4 a.m. wake up in the sub 30 degree terrain of my hotel room. It might be settling into my chest a bit. Hold on, that didn't work. Talk about this yourself.
Joy.
Great is working with like charity auctions, that kind of thing, contributing your time because you all have a talent that you can contribute, and that is a great way to get in front of people that you would not normally get in front of. So if you're doing anything like a charity, a fundraiser, getting involved in that level, and then those people will also promote you. So cross-marketing yourself that way, great way for lead generation.
I have a question about that.
Oh, can I interject 1 second? Joy Bianchi Brown, if you guys didn't notice, I mean, she's like, we're jokingly referring to her. Am I good? No. We're jokingly referring to her as my assistant, but she and Jules Bianchi run a very successful business, and she's an incredibly business-minded woman in her own right. Absolutely, if you don't already know that about her. So she's in no way my assistant. She's just like my friend who's helping me out and giving me hugs when I'm cold. And then obviously has a flood of incredibly smart business advice to offer to this conversation. So thank you for being here, and always. Yeah, so on the charitable marketing, on the auctions, I think we do something like an average of 30 to 35 auctions a year at least that we donate to. You can decide what kind of packages that you want to donate. It's completely up to you. What we found, and I'd be curious to hear yours too, but we found our sweet spot is a waived session fee. My session fee is $500. A waived session fee that for the client, and it includes one 8x10. Is this in? Okay. It includes one 8x10. And so the package, of course, is valued at, whatever the amount is, $650 or something. And that means that when you're at the physical auction, and that whether it's a black tie affair for the American Heart Association or a fundraiser for some wonderful charitable cause that you love, you have something where people walk through and they'll either do a silent auction or they'll bid on a piece of paper for your product. One thing to keep in mind is that you then show some sort of representation of your work. The last thing I would do at an auction like this is send in a picture of a family sitting in the grass. Like, I would not send in any sort of piece of my work, which I may love and enjoy and have done a great sale with the client and be really proud of, but I'm not going to send something in that's going to be an auction piece that's going to be displayed that might be sitting next to 2 or 3 other photographers' work and look kind of like just a similar kind of composition and subject and this and that. I'm going to send something in that's a little bit more daring, a little more bold, a little more striking. I want it to stand out. I want someone to be walking past and stop for a second and look. And that may not be the representation of all the work I ever do, but it certainly is a sample of some of the work I do and that I'm excited about, and I get a lot of joy out and stands out from the market. So auctions can be very, very average to sub-poor in terms of what kind of return you get from them, or they can be outstanding if you put a few extra considerations into it, like I want to put in a standout piece that people really see. I want to get some sort of buzz going that a few people are bidding and they're outbidding and they're competing for it and they're talking about it. I want to have something when that client comes in and she's got a lot of good feeling associated with me because I support an organization that they obviously care about in some way. And by the time they bought that session or they bought that auction piece or won that auction piece to the time they get in to see me has been usually a good amount of time. And as far as they're concerned, that they're starting fresh. Like, it's not like they already put some money into this. This was something they gave to a charitable organization. It was a charitable thing. They're starting fresh with me, and they're coming in with a lot of good feeling. So I have a new client who typically, I'd love to hear your experience, but my experience, I find that I have higher than average sales from my auction pieces. So I gave something away.
As long as they feel like what they got was valuable and not like, oh, I just got this free photo session, that they have to know this was a $650 value.
It's a big old thing on there
that they get, so that then they're, even though they didn't maybe pay that much for it, depending on, or maybe they paid more depending on how the auction went.
Yeah, a lot of times when it runs up and things like that. So they're coming in fresh. They've got some good feeling. I've got a brand new client plus another X amount of eyes who've seen my work who may not have been familiar with it before. We do the session, and now I've got all the flood of word of mouth after that when the session goes well and they buy their pieces and they're happy. So to me, it's always been kind of a win-win. Not always. I've definitely had some auction things where I'm like, that wasn't a win. But it was a win in the respect that you supported a great organization, and your organization is then associated with that organization, and that's really positive.
Just while we're on that, Tamara, I have a couple questions in chat related specifically to auction donations.
Yes, and I want to hear yours too.
From Nick Ray is, can you deduct those auction items from your taxes?
No. Well, you can deduct, and this may vary per state. In North Carolina, you can deduct the cost of the print that you spend money on, the amount you spent on that print.
Sure.
You can't deduct the cost of any services at all.
Okay. And do you require a minimum bid when you're doing that?
Yes. Yes, we require a minimum bid, and it varies per organization. Yeah, I don't want anyone doing it for $5.
That helps create the value too.
Yes.
If there's a minimum bid required.
Yes, if they're walking around, they're seeing all these other things for $10, $5, et cetera, and boom, yours starts at $300 or whatever. There's some value there. How do you guys do it with auctions?
I think also, we do something very similar, where our price point is about the same as yours, but we also do credits. We don't do a free 8x10. We just do a credit towards products.
Okay.
Because people have a hard time leaving money on the table. So anytime you offer a credit, people want to use that credit. and it encourages them to buy more. So the other idea that you can do with an auction is you can also hold a raffle. And if you think win-win for whatever organization you're working with, that you're going to give this money from the raffle to that organization, but two things happen is one, people are giving you the raffle ticket, so you're getting their contact information because on that raffle they're writing down all their contact information, and then you can give each person in the raffle, like they can win a sitting, but everybody else is going to win a gift certificate from you. So you have a reason to contact all those people, and again, you're leaving money on the table for them. So you're giving them maybe a $100 gift certificate towards a sitting with you. So you're giving them a reason to call you, and so
That's a great idea.
just
It's
fun
a great
ways
idea.
to-
I like that. I'm going to use that. Sarah, studio manager, can you write that down? Have you heard that? Thank you. Gift certificates, let's write that too. If you're not offering gift certificates with your business, you're missing out on a massive revenue generator. And you can be promoting gift certificates all year long because there's that many holidays all year long. There's Mother's Day, there's Christmas, there's every
reason to contact clients.
religious holiday.
Any reason to contact clients.
Yeah, I mean, there's always something like that. We upgraded gift certificates to be one of the header bars on our nav bar because I wanted to move them that much. You can do gift certificates, which are physical, like written things, or you can do a gift card, similar to like any sort of gift card you'd get at a major retailer. You can do it all kinds of ways, but the one thing to keep in mind is you have a 1-year expiration date on it so that you can get the movement on it and the traction on it. Technically, you can always let it expire and just say, sorry, you lost the value of the gift that was given to you. We always accept the gift certificates that were given. Again, it's the good feeling and it's respectful of dollars spent and such. But we find that if you can do things, here's another really good marketing idea. If you can do things where you set it up that you have a registry in place. So we use PickPick. For our gallery. PickPick is now a subsidiary of White House Custom Color. And basically what we had decided, and there's all kinds of things out there, because I know you guys use Pictage. I use PickPick because I wanted to be able to completely, this sounds so controlling, but I wanted to control how my prints were coming in, how my orders were coming in. I wanted to make sure I was completely owning the quality of the prints. So if I did something where somebody comes to, so a normal sales process will be, I will take the photographs, I will process them, I'll put a slideshow out, I'll have my client see it for a little bit, and then I'll have them come in, we'll pick through everything they want, we'll put their order together, and after their order is together, I will put that slideshow back up for them to play it for friends and family if they want, and then I'll put a link to a PickPick gallery. Now, PickPick Gallery is basically, the way we use it, is the ability to view your images much more large screen. Be able to zoom in and see some more detail about the prints versus some slideshows, which can be smaller, or we might have more problems accessing them via, depending on the size of your screen or the resolution or such. And then you can place an order directly and order, just use your credit card and buy a print online. And we include this as an option for friends and family and grandparents and all that sort of stuff. So this is now like basically another channel of sales after I have had the session with my clients. Because a lot of times they'll say, well, I know, my mother-in-law wants to buy something, but I don't have her order yet, and maybe I'll just wait until I get that. And I don't want to delay the sale and have one more thing from a business perspective hanging out on my plate. I would like to close that sale up, have that sent to them, and then know that we have this additional revenue channel coming in with sales.
How would the gallery on PickPick be there for the family to sort of go by?
That can be indefinite. I don't have a limit with that because to me, those are gravy sales. Okay. I can put a whole little army into that, like try to really push those sales too. That's another way to go if you want to, really put revenue generation on there as a hard driver.
Did you say indefinite? You just leave them online?
We leave the PickPick galleries up for a while.
Because there's also something about sense of urgency. If they know they can only...
This is different because we put the slideshow up super fast.
No. I mean sense of urgency that if they don't buy by the end of the month, otherwise they'll just like, oh, I'll do that later, and then it might never happen.
Or you can that's what I'm saying, you could put someone hard and fast on that and own that, which means that you have okay, it's going to be up for 3 months, we're going to take it down, you want to back up, contact us, we'll do a meeting. You could do that if you really wanted to drive it. I probably don't take it that far. And that might be mostly because I feel really good when I've met my sales that everything else is coming in gravy, and that's great. But you can run it so that you're just like, I'm going to get all of this. You could do that. I don't really do that, but you could. You could definitely do that. The other thing to keep in mind with the Pick Gallery is that you could do something where you have a gift registry, and they have this built into their system as the functionality. So if I'm doing a session with a family, and I don't think they necessarily are going to be a very high average sales. I think it's probably going to come in a little low, but I do my best and I do a great session and I deliver to them. This answers your question from a while ago. And I deliver the session to them. They may say to me, God, we love these photographs. If it were up to me, I would buy every single one of them, but it's you or filling up the refrigerator next week. So what you might want to do is say, do you have any holidays coming up, any birthdays that maybe the grandparents want to buy things for the kids? Why don't we create a registry for you? And if people say, okay, what do you want for the holidays, or what do you want for this anniversary, or what do you want for so-and-so's birthday party? Just say, well, we have a registry at Nikki MacArthur Photography, Epic Danger Photography. We have a registry there that you can just send them the link, and then they can buy things for you, and it can all compile into a gift. This works really well.
I never heard that's a good idea.
We're on fire.
Julia.
This really are on fire.
These work for really well for weddings, especially too. So after a lot of people want to know what to get, and if you can team up with your wedding clients in advance and let them know that this is coming and they can consider this as opposed to something else from one of the other registries, that's phenomenal for you.
Okay.
So, and same thing, newborns, babies' first year, all that sort of stuff. Let's talk registry.
Quick question for you on the Pick Gallery.
Yes.
Are you, do you sell all of the same products via Pick, or is it just that you sell in studio?
Yes, you can build
So
any products you want into
everything.
there. You can
Okay.
have it be albums, you can have it be prints, you can have it be canvases. And what you do is you just have an image that shows what it is, along with a description and pricing and all that sort of thing. And you can put in, again, you can work with them to customize as much as you want. I could see, they might even be doing this. Maybe if Pick's around, they can answer this. But they might already be doing this. But I could see something where you could upload a short little movie describing what the product is, flip through the pages, show it in the home, really make it like a full, like I'm almost there, and have your site be selling it for you. That's another strong suggestion for your regular site about your products. But it's nice to have that tied to a shopping cart.
As far as albums go, do you design the albums yourself, or do you just say hey, Kiss wedding books or whatever, can you just create this? Because a lot of the places have they'll custom create the album for you.
You're asking about album design?
Yeah.
Can you put album design up there?
Do you do that yourself, or do you put that out? Are your albums one per page? How do you?
Let me answer that. Put up album design, and please put up card design and all that stuff.
Yeah, so
all the designing we're expected to do as photographers.
Product design.
Photographers are expected to be graphic designers.
Yeah.
Now, so those are one of the things that we have to really consider is how do you design all these things, whether it's your website, whether it's your cards, whether it's your album, whether it's the layout for the next canvas creation that you're going to put up on their wall. There's a design component to it that's really heavy. So I have found that in my own work, some of the things I want to design and I want to put together, and I get really excited and fired up and lay it all out and share it with the client. Other things I'm like, you know what, I would love to get to that, but it's my daughter's school recital, and I can't miss that, so I'm going to outsource it. So in my business, some of the things I outsource are because I absolutely can't stand to do them, or I might like to do them, but I'm terrible at it, or it's something that I think is better done in the hands of somebody else, even though it's something I like to do simply because I don't have the time to do it. And so album design exactly fits into that category. Okay. I work with a company in California called Modern Album Designs. They are, I'm in no way supported by them, but I mean, I meant to say they're not sponsoring me in any way, but I'm supported by them because Chung, who is the guy we talk to a lot, they're really good about, we've got a price in place, and we give them the images. They get a really good feel for what my design style is and what I like to see. We look through the design when they come back and check out basically the various options on each page and each spread, and I can take notes and send it back to him. And sometimes I'll go back and forth with them 3 times on an album in terms of any revisions I want to see or design elements that I would like included well before my client ever sees it. So in that respect, I don't feel like I'm sending it away and it just shows up at my client's door. I feel like I'm getting a great head start I'm getting it sent back to me, and then I'm able to do anything I want to it, so I can send it to my client. And so I feel like I have everything that I picked up in terms of the session and the experience with them, I can then have reflected in the design, because I think that's important, you know? And if I have something where I really caught on to the fact that daddy and daughter have just this beautiful, sweet, sweet bond, and I want that to be showcased, and I want that to be a full spread across, and I don't want that to be missed, I'll make sure that it's not a generic, you know, auto design that's sent to my clients.
Because Craig likes to throw these things in there, I have a comment from Nick Ray in the chat room that we've crashed the PickPick website.
My Cameron will like that.
You're welcome, Pick. But they're that good, you know. I mean, I have a lot of fun with their and they're just really nice people too. I mean, honestly, I talked earlier about how you want to keep your expenses. You want to be able to manage your expenses. You want to look around a lot and see what other vendors are out there, and you want to be smart about where you're spending your dollars and make sure that you're not overpaying when you think about other products and services available to you. That is true. But in addition, if you're working with somebody that's making your life easier, and they're friendly, and they're bringing a good, sweet energy to the conversations that you're having, and they're a little bit more costly, I think, to me, I budget that in. You know, I'm willing sometimes to pay for a service that may not be the cheapest one on the market if I feel like the interactions I have are careful and considerate and kind. I mean, I don't want to work with a very, very cheap vendor who treats me like crap, because that's also part of my day and part of my experience, you know? So that goes into it. I like working with nice people.
But I think I was going to say what you said is really key, is that you budget it in. And so into your cost. And that, you know, if you're going to work with a high-end vendor, then you have to budget that in.
Yeah, I mean, tying into the life-work balance, we all know that costs of sales are not always dollars. They're like tears, and I'm tired, and why am I still doing this? And budgeting. Okay. So, what was that last part about? Do you remember? Was I finished with it?
The books.
Album design. So I work with Modern Album Designs, but I feel like it's a really collaborative process, and I like that. And one of the other things I like about them is that you can do unlimited changes. So that helps me out a lot too.
So just kind of recapping.
Yes.
We talked about word of mouth being probably the most important to you.
Yes.
And then we talked about volunteering or auctions.
Yes.
And that's a good word.
And charitable causes.
Okay, charitable causes.
Charitable causes and community events. So,
Okay.
I think the phrase paying it forward or giving it back sometimes can be used so casually that no one's even hearing it anymore. You know? Speaking of, there's a great website out there, Pay It Forward. PIFphoto.com. If you get a chance to check it out, they do a great job profiling people who are doing good in this industry and really trying to help people out. Lee Fleur de Lis on Twitter, she and I had a great conversation where they put forward. She does a lot of blog posts for them. She's fabulous. She's just such a sweet person. I love her. Hi, Lee. But I think there are people out there who really care a lot about trying to get out the message that it's not just all about you. Like what can we do for each other? How can we build each other as a community? Not only as a community of artists, but as a community of people. In any sort of environment we're living in. And so charitable causes are a huge deal. So some of the things that we do as a studio for the last 7 years, we've sponsored, I think it's 8 children now through World Vision and Save the Children. It's just a monthly payment that we send out to them that's just right off our credit card. And a couple things to think about as an individual who owns a company. If you can have a lot of the expenses of charitable credits come out of your business versus your personal expenses, there's an upside to that in terms of taxation. So think about that as you're going into it. I'm not going to give tax advice because I just don't want to be liable for that. But look into that because I think that's a transition we made because as a family we were doing a lot of charitable donating, but kind of moving that over I think is very helpful. Here's another thing about tax. I'm gonna share the story because it was awful and it's so important that people know this. When I moved into our new studio space, we were working from home, we moved into the studio, and something about the business change of address triggered an audit. So we had a sales tax audit, and I remember hearing about it thinking, what a pain. I'm going to have to spend a couple days getting them my receipts and opening my books, but it'll be over soon, and I'm doing everything by the books, and I'm doing everything right, so I have nothing to worry about. was 6 months long. In the end, I had to write a check for $26,000, which I ended up getting knocked down to $13,800, I think. And let me tell you why. I live in North Carolina, and I moved there from San Francisco. When I lived in San Francisco, if you remember talking about the business I ran in San Francisco, we'd start up a business, and I knew all about the fact that we charge taxes for products and not for services. So I moved to North Carolina. I walked into the NC Department of Revenue, and I said, how would I do that here? I'm starting a business here, and I just want to make sure I'm doing everything right. So it came in not only with the best of intentions, but also the actions to follow. The woman said, it's really easy. You make sure you put a tax of, I think at the time it was like 6.75% on any products you sell, and anything that isn't a product involved, if it's just a service, there's no tax. So just make sure you make them different line items in your invoice and you're fine. So that is how I did it from day one. Fast forward to 3.5 years later of being in business, I sit down and she says, I want to see every single transaction that you've ever done in your business for the last 3 solid years. So I'm pulling everything together, and of course, during that process, we had moved accounting systems, and we'd had, and receipts, and pulling all that in, and she camped in my studio. I mean, it felt so invasive and frustrating, and it was so business pace numbing. I mean, everything became about the conversations I was having with this agent. And it became something that I'm not going to make a statement about the North Carolina tax board here, but it was an incredibly subjective experience. I didn't feel like we were talking about rules anymore. I felt like we got into conversations about preferences and feelings that day, and what I want to cover and how much I want to drill down on, even though you've just showed it all to me. Let's go over it again. It became exhausting. And so we did this for 6 months, and in the end, she said that there's a 2-line statement in the North Carolina tax code, and somebody could probably look it up and find it, that was basically saying a line that I read very clearly and had been explained to me very clearly, that you tax for products and not services. She said the way she read that was that you tax for products, and services that may lead to products need to be taxed as well. And she said it was completely up to the personal interpretation of the agent, and that was her interpretation. So every single session fee that I'd never taxed had to be taxed retroactively. Every single wedding I'd shot that had been delivered virtually, and there was no products associated, because the first year I was doing a lot of that virtually, had to be taxed. And she came up with this total bill for those 3 years of 26 whatever thousand. And I said, how am I supposed to do that? And she goes, just go back and send a bill to everybody. I'm like, you mean obliterate my client list? So I, of course, made the decision immediately that there's no way I was going to go back and tell clients I'm taxing them differently now. And what we had to do was go line by line by line and discover that, okay, this bride had actually come in from Texas, and she'd had her wedding in North Carolina, but she lives in Texas. Okay, so that one's out. And we don't have to charge tax on that. And I had to go one by one by one by one. And in the end, I had to actually negotiate, similar to like if I were buying a car, I had to negotiate with her that, okay, because, it was 3 years were not just all those back tax, it was now penalties and interest. So I had to go back and say, looking at all the last 3 years, even though talking about this, I'm like, getting frustrated again, because it was so, it was like, and if you're somebody who's staying up to 3 in the morning and you're exhausted and you're wiped out and you're putting everything into this, it's so jarring, because you're like, I'm making all this money that I'm giving to this state tax organization, and they're basically killing the golden goose layer. Yeah, golden egg goose producer. I mean, it's like, why would you want to put me out of business? And why would you want to do this to multiple businesses? It doesn't make business sense to me. Like, why would you do that? And yet that was really what the purpose seemed to be. So my understanding is, I found out later that the photography industry had been targeted, and I knew about 6 other people just in my area who had the same experience. And we had to negotiate down that if I wrote a check that day, like seriously, it was like buying a car. If I wrote a check that day, they would waive the penalties and just have they waive the interest and just charge the penalties. And so I wrote a check that day with the intention of going to court, but to go ahead and knock it down to that amount that we'd agreed on. And then I spent the next 2 weeks kind of sitting there thinking, this This was so exhausting. If I hadn't had the revenue built up to date in my business, it would have put me out of business, because it wasn't just the money, it was the opportunity cost of how much time I'd spent on it in the last 6 months. And I had the realization, that going to court now meant an unlimited amount of time that I was going to have to continue to deal with this. And I just kind of did the bless them for what they have done. Move on, you know? But I think it's really, really, really important for photographers to know this. Check in with your state. And here's the thing, when I told her, I walked in and they told me this, and she said, show me where it's in writing and signed and stamped.
So is the moral, get a good accountant who knows what they're doing?
No, the moral is get everything written and signed
writing.
and
Stamped.
Get it in writing.
And stamped, you
Find
mean?
out what your local county rules are, your state rules are, and make sure it's documented for you. Because if she'd walked in and said that, I'd showed her the paper, it would have been done. That'd have been it.
I'm so glad I live in a tax-free country.
Oh, that is nice that you live in a tax-free country.
It's so much easier.
In Canada, you have to charge GST. A lot of people don't know that, because it's as long as your revenue is under, I think, like $12,000 a year of profit, you don't need to charge GST. Or if you're in a province that has HST, you have to charge that. But if you make $12,001, then you need to have GST on all of that stuff. So just charge GST to begin with.
Susie Bell Photo on Twitter is saying the tax talk is freaking her out.
The what?
The tax talk is freaking her out.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was freaky.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, because you know what else it is? It's demoralizing.
Yeah.
It's demoralizing because you put so much energy and effort, and so I just listed a million negative things from that experience, right? Here's the upside. That'll never happen again.
Right.
I'm incredibly careful about that now. Number two is I got a really, 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 really great opportunity to see just how much I love my business, because I fought for it. And I sat there, and every line item I fought for, because it wasn't even about the money anymore. It became about the point of like, no, you're not going to do this to me and my business and my client list. And so I got to really appreciate just how much effort and care I'd put in this business and how much I wanted to keep it, and how much effort I wanted to get into growing it, which transitions us really well back to this.
Well, can I just recap again?
Say again?
Good job for getting through it.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I honestly, it reduced me to tears on multiple occasions, and I'm like, why am I crying over that tax agent? I don't like her. She's not invited to any of my parties.
So I have requests more information about bringing people in. So I'm kind of just recapping what you said about word of mouth, and then you said
Okay, so back to marketing tactics. There's
well,
more.
you said charitable causes, and then you
Charitable
said gift certificates, and then I guess I'm wondering
Other ways.
what else is on that list.
Yeah.
Sort of a mess. Our list is sort of.
Well, this is on purpose, though.
I
We'll
know,
tell you
we
why.
know, yeah. So, okay, well, here we have volunteer charity, pay it forward auctions, word of mouth, community involvement is a big one.
And then
The gift certificates is here.
Promotional cards.
Okay.
Promotional
Promo
cards.
I think promo cards are a little bit of a dying marketing effort. People are more and more just kind of not bothering, and they're still really valuable. They're still really cool, because a lot of people walk into artistic, cool vendors, and you still see the promo cards delivered in a nicer way. I would put a lot of effort into look and feel of your promo card.
I always pick those up.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
them.
because you walk through and you see this
I wanna
really
see.
beautiful fine art
Yeah.
image, and you're like, I might just pick that up and frame it. I've had people tell me that all the time.
Do you have any thoughts about direct mail?
Yes, I don't love direct mail. I know people who say good things about it. I think maybe it's the environmentalist in me who just cringes a little bit at printing all those up and mailing them all out. That might be it. But I also think that you can achieve very similar results and very similar targeting with electronic mail, electronic promo cards and newsletters and such.
Do you have, sorry.
What I was going to say is that all
You're
of
next.
these are great things, but they are still very, very broad. How do you get that tip very
Did you just call
fine?
me a broad?
No, I did not. You weren't listening to me now.
I'm listening.
She
Go.
saw something shiny.
You really want me to say it again?
No, I really do, because I wasn't listening.
Okay. All of these things are great, but they can be very broad. They
You're
can
saying
bring in-
specifically,
they
how
can
do I
bring
make a
in-
promotional card, or what do you mean?
No. All
The
of
right
these
kind of client.
things, they can target somebody at a low price point or at a high price point.
You're saying, how do you get specific about reaching your
How
target
do you
market?
bring that
Yes.
point fine?
Yes. Okay, I'd love to answer that. Did you have something like that?
Just, do you have a, like an email blast company that you use?
We use My Emma is our newsletter thing. There's also Constant Contact. There's Eye Contact. There's, say it again? Mad Mimi. Things to look at when you're getting, and I'm going to go back to you in a second, but this actually ties in. Things to look at when you're deciding upon who you want as your kind of newsletter, email blast sort of thing. Tracking. You want really, really good tracking. You want to see that the stuff you sent out, who opened it up, how long they were checking it out, what percentage of people opened it up in what amount of time, depending on if I sent a newsletter out at 5 p.m. on a Friday, what were the results versus if I sent it out maybe at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. Who did they forward it to? What links did they click on? What links did they ignore? That's really valuable information on continuing to target market better and cleaner and sharper, and really hone in on who you want to reach and the best way you can reach them. So consider that strongly. The question about like how do you reach your target market then? So that's one way, is think about, when's your target market reading these sort of things. I did a whole thing, a walkthrough in my, one of the things I did, where I talked about really getting to know your target market. And that comes down to, this comes back to kind of some of the 101 marketing things, but apply a lot right now to business, is if you actually visualize who your target market is. Like what is it, a family? What's his name? What's her name? About how old are they? How many kids do they have? Where do they live? What kind of car do they drive? What neighborhood are they in? What functions do they go to? Where do they spend their leisure time? What things do they watch? What things do they read? Like really think about it. If you sit there and you write a whole story about this fictional family that you want to be made real and you want to have a relationship with, and you want to photograph them, you want to sell to them, they want them to tell all their friends at the next cocktail party, you can start really honing in on exactly who your target market is, because you can figure out the ways to reach them. And if you break that down even further, what do they watch? What do they listen to? Do they listen to NPR? Okay, let me consider maybe doing a small spot on NPR for some sort of future advertising. Do they go to cocktail parties? Do they support certain fundraisers? Okay, that's a fundraiser that I want to have an auction at. Where do they shop? Okay, I want to get some promo cards in those stores. That's where you start kind of really nailing down to that person. What do they drive? Maybe I want to drive something that looks kind of like that as best I can. I can't drive a BMW, but maybe a Jetta looks kind of cool.
What were some of the steps that brought you from that starting point of, what did you start at 8 years ago?
$75.
75
yep.
to, some of the key things.
To
Did you start
now.
out year 1, 2, and 3 doing this? Because you were changing prices
I went from
rapidly.
$100 to $125 to $150 to $175. I was like, okay, it was like getting in the pool when it's kind of cold. Like, oh, okay, I'm warm. Oh, okay, I'm warm. I kind of did it that way. And then I brought myself up to, I think I was at $450 for the last 2 years, up until months ago. Or I have no concept of time anymore. Some certain amount of time. And for me, because I wanted to find, again, that when I set my session fee, this is what I care about. I don't care what anybody else's session fee is. Because that's the other thing. I find that when I look around at what everybody else is doing from the purpose of trying to set myself apart as a competitor, or the purpose of seeing how are they all doing it so I can see how to do it, what I'm doing is putting all my energy on them. I'm putting all my energy here and I'm draining it from my business and what I want to do and what I want to grow and what I want to envision as a success. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that strongly. And that doesn't mean you can't gain inspiration, like see a beautiful shot out there and you're like, something about the way that use that sun flare, I'm going to go out and try that. I want to keep that in mind. I think that's really cool. Gaining inspiration is so different than copying. Like, it's not the same thing, and some people may use some words to describe the other action, and I think you need to get clean about that. Because, again, you're not being fair to you as an artist if you're trying to be somebody else, because you're not giving yourself enough credit to grow and really see who you are. And it's the same thing with business. If you're seeing how everybody else does business and try to set your prices and make your look like that, you're not getting a chance to figure out who you are and what kind of brand you want to develop. So, what was the question?
About finding the right kind of clients and how you built
so targeting them very specifically that way.
Going on to that, the things that I like to shoot, I feel as though, like, if I wanted to make a lot of money doing photography, which ideally I do, I feel like, your target client for the whole, like, being able to make a good profit on and price point is, a little bit of the older established families, so like moms in their 30s, like moms and dads in their 30s usually, probably. But I feel like the shots that I want to take a lot of the time, the more established clients aren't the ones that are really wanting to do that type of photography. They're more looking at like really nice, like everyone's smiling,
Yet.
holding each other's hands a lot of the time, I
But
find.
you're helping to move them in the direction of your work by showing them some of what maybe they're used to.
Okay.
Some of what's a compromise between your styles and some of just your style.
Okay.
You know, I definitely have clients that I've worked with for years. The first time I met them, everything in their house was like an oil painting, and they were wearing the long dress and the huge bow, and they were standing just like this, or they're sitting on a couch next to a fireplace or a vase. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of photography, but it's absolutely not the kind of photography I do. So what I would do is do some sort of shots that I thought were a little more traditional and in keeping with the look that they were comfortable with. And then I would kind of, you know, it's that same thing about getting in the pool. I would ease them in by showing out some of my work, and then some of the stuff that I think is really fun and impactful I'd like to go to. And if I walk into their home now, it's like all the stuff I love.
But what if the stuff that they originally have, it steals my soul? It takes it and it steps on it like that, like you know, like that really traditional. Like I just hate it. I just, it's not what I want to shoot.
But why does that matter?
Why does it matter that I shoot it anyway?
No, like what is that? You're saying to even do a couple shots like that would steal your soul.
I guess I could do a couple. I guess.
Let me ask you a question. Who's the session for?
Not me.
No.
No, really, I guess.
No, it's both of you.
I guess so.
It is,
Yeah.
though. It is. Because you're doing some things for them and some things for you.
Right.
You know, and if you can intermingle that in a way that makes everybody happy, it's like any sort of relationship. Either I win or you lose. What if we both kind of figure out a way to mostly win?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
Princess Di had this great quote. She said, they say it's better to be happy than rich, but what about like moderately rich and kind of moody?
Okay.
You know, like
I can do that.
There's compromises at play here that doesn't strip your soul out.
Okay.
You know, and I hear photographers say that, like, you know, talk about the client that they want that shots, and oh my God, I was going to puke and throw up, and it's not.
I'm not
like,
gonna
that's
puke.
I'm not saying you would,
Yeah.
but think about the fact that like we all have different styles and different things we love.
Right.
And for me, I don't shoot traditional shots, but I will look at certain traditional shots now and just kind of be blown away at the perfection of them. And that's not how I felt 8 years ago.
Right.
I would look at them like, oh my God, how boring and lifeless, and I hate it. Now I'm like, look how well that subject was modeled by the light, and look how precise the hair light is right exactly there, and how it's skimming right off the edge of the ear, and look at how the fingers are so delicate, and the pose is just completely complimentary to this child. That's still not what I want to shoot, but I want to use a lot of those rules to make my images look better.
And I've had so many parents where I've got these photos which I think are great, but they're just like, yeah, he wasn't smiling, so I don't like it. It's like, well, your baby's not old enough to smile yet, so what am I supposed to do? They just want the smiling photos. How do you get around that?
Well, other than make the baby smile.
Because I thought they were great photos.
Yeah.
But they just obviously didn't, because they wanted a smiling photo.
Let me show you an image. Let me tell you this little story. This is exactly this. This is exactly this. This image that, and I think what I'm going to end up doing is just have you zoom in on my laptop, unless I can cord it up real quick. Can I cord up an image real quick to the TV? Would that be no, the TV's over there. I'm going to turn around. So, and then maybe just be ready to show this. But let me just tell you 2 seconds about this story. This is actually one of my, and this ties into sales very nicely, so we're not actually getting off business at all. I had an experience with this family where, and if you've ever seen me talk before, you've probably heard this story because it's one of my favorites ever. But I had this experience with this family where it was mom, dad, and little girl. And, but don't show it yet. Okay, promise? Promise? Nico hasn't gotten much sleep. We have to talk closely,
Come on, Nico.
carefully. So I had this experience with this family where we spent the whole morning in the park, and we were having so much fun, and she was skipping and dancing and playing, and she had on the cutest outfit where it was just so cool to put together. She had the kind of like the little girl we photographed with the family who's now on the cover of this thing, where it was just put together really well, and her hair was up in pigtails, and she was just adorable and fun. And the whole shoot, we did about 2 or 3 outfit changes, and the whole shoot is just her laughing and playing and snuggling with mommy and daddy. It was like the perfect shoot. So we're getting done, we're tying down and stuff, and the whole time we kept telling her about how when we're done, we're going to go to the ice cream parlor. Not me, but them. They were going to go to the ice cream parlor, and she was going to get her ice cream. And that became like a fun thing. And I'm talking about, like, you're going to get chocolate, you're going to get 2 scoops, what kind of toppings you're going to get. We get to the end of the shoot, and we're about to start packing up and leaving, and I'm telling them about when they're going to get their session back and what to expect and all that sort of thing. And then, as we're about to go, her mom says, oh, totally forgot. We want to put that one dress on you that we got from Aunt Mabel, and she will just be so mad if we don't get one image of you. She sent it just so you could have the picture of her in that dress. So this little girl is about 3 years old, hears that, and she's just like, but I'm done. Like she was done. And she
I want my ice cream.
Yeah, I want my ice cream. Where's my payoff? Where's my treat? So we pull the clothing off the little girl in the park. She puts the dress on her and shoves it all in, starts buttoning it up at the back. And it's actually a wool dress and it's long sleeve and it's like a warm day. And the little girl was just like, well, that's not fair, And she got really upset and she ended up throwing herself on the ground, having one of those temper tantrums where like she loses, everything, every one of her limbs and, and she just goes nuts and all this sort of stuff. Where did you take my computer? Am I going to have it to show or are you doing something top secret-ish? Are you buying me a gift?
Hey, Tamara.
They're using my passcode to buy things on my site. So anyway, she ends up having this major, major fit. And I'm going to pause until I have a product to show you about it. But let me skip forward a little bit to say, when we're in the sales session and we're sitting down and going through everything, we're looking at all these fun, happy, cute, adorable images, and they're smiling and this and that, and they're like, oh my God, I love her, you caught our baby, she's so sweet, and they got the family images, and we have this really nice sale. I was really happy with the sale because it was a combination of a whole bunch of things. And when we end the sales session, I'm like, and I've got one more image to show you. And it's my favorite of all time. I mean, I love this image. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite images I've ever shot. And I said, I have to show you this, but I had to save it till last. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm thinking I'm making this great presentation, this is gonna blow them away because they thought they saw the good stuff. I pull up this image. Can I show it? I love the suspense built into this. Can I show it?
Better be a really good image.
Okay. If you give me a controller, yep. Hold on, it's not that one. Wait for it. Legend.
Wait for it. Building.
Dairy.
Do we get to see it?
Do we get to show it? Hold on. The audience can see it?
The live audience
Okay.
can see it.
I pull up this image.
Internet. What does it look like, Internet?
Oh.
And it's when she'd completely lost every bone in her body, fell to the ground, was so miserable, and her dad says, that's it, no ice cream. So she stands up and she looks at me. And she looks at me like, I will suck it up for one more shot. And I love this image, and I'm showing it to them, and I'm like, oh my God, look at her, how great she is. She's got like these huge round cheeks, and she's got like no ankles, she's all cankle. And she's fantastic, and her little lip is pouting out just so, and I'm thinking, they're gonna go nuts and like wallpaper their house with this, and they go, eh. I was like, what? And they're like, that's all right. We're really happy with what we got, though. We're good. And I just, like, from a business perspective and an artistic perspective, I was stunned. I'm like,
It stole your soul, right?
they stole my soul. You just ground it up and like mixed it in some sort of porter and messed all of it. And so I ended up saying, you have to get a 5x7. That's what I got. That's what I reduced it to. So they went out with their floppy 5x7 with everything else done. And I was just like, man. So I held on to that image. I made it into a huge canvas, put it up in my studio, put it on my website. And when Rangefinder did a profile on me, like 2 years later, I gave them a handful of my images that were my favorite. And this is the one they chose to do a full page image of.
You got your soul back.
Got my soul back. This is the one they chose to do a full page image of. And so I called the parents. I said, I want to show you something. And I went to their house. They were actually nearby. And I showed them, I wanted you to get a copy of this magazine. Look. And I showed it. And again, it had been a couple of years later. So when that had happened, she was in a tantrumy stage. Like, she'd been great that day, but they were so emotionally tied to the annoyance of a tantrum and how frustrating that was that they couldn't see that image and think that's awesome. They saw that image and said, there she goes again. Can't stand that. Now, 2 years later, I showed them that image, and they hadn't looked at it. Their mom told me that they took the 5x7 and threw it at a desk. They basically bought it to appease me because I kept harping on how great this image was. And now they looked at it, and her dad says, like, oh my God, remember that? Like, now she's got, a face with structure in it, and she goes, legs that don't just go in one line, and she goes, and I don't see that anymore. She's like a little girl now. And they ended up buying a huge print a couple years later. So when you think about sales and you think about things like I only want to see the smiles and this and that, sometimes what you're dealing with is a parent that's a little too emotionally tied to something you know? And if you give it some time and you let that emotion die down, you let that attachment to a negative feeling kind of wander away and nostalgia comes in, you know, if all they want is smiley things now, later they're going to be like, they'll see a picture where the baby's not smiling, and they're like, God, he looks so introspective and dreamy, and there's something about that that's so soulful and beautiful. They just might not have that right now. So I will do that. If I have a few favorite images that my clients don't agree with me on how fantastic they are, I'll pull it out later and I'll remind them. And I've had some big sales that way, just by waiting a little bit and letting them separate themselves from any sort of emotion that, you know, doesn't go into the sale. Yeah, he loves that. He thinks it's a great idea. You are welcome to.
Tamara, I just want to let you know that, I'm sorry, Allison and Jeff Rogers are watching. And they say hi.
Yeah, we're gonna go on a little sales thing. I'm gonna be sharing some of their tips too. Thank you guys. They're the one. Oh, ask them, since they're there, what the discount is and what the giveaway is that they want to do for Labobi.
Okay.
So if you check out labobi.com, little blog of big ideas, they have a bunch of photographer tools and a bunch of photographers' tools and sales products and like cool, funky things you can do with your images, little framing and textures and stuff. And they're just really, again, I keep going back to people I like. They're really nice people, and they're very good at sales and running a business. And so check that out. I think we're going to have a 50% off code that he's going to tell me what it is, and some sort of giveaway that he's going to tell me what it is right now via you, Susan.
Okay.
Okay.
It'll be via Bruce.
So releases with clients, and do they sometimes ask you whether those images are going to end up on your website or for marketing?
When clients, can you put up legal forms, contracts, any sort of model releases? When thank you for setting all that up, by the way. That was nice. It was worth it. That's a cool image, right? Am I wrong? No, I'm not wrong. When I book a session initially and someone pays their session fee, they actually sign that they're paying the session fee. It's kind of a receipt combo verbiage that says, understanding that I can use these images for any sort of marketing purposes on my blog, any sort of thing I do. It's basically a catch-all phrase that says, you understand that these images are mine, I own them, and of course would love to have you have the rights to reproduce them or buy the prints from them. But the understanding is that this is the artist's work, you know? So I kind of cover myself for everything. When I wrote my book, we had to get everybody to sign an additional model release. Same thing with the DVD, Inside Contemporary Children's Photography. When we did that, I had to go back, and some of those people, I'm like, hi, me again. Still want to use that picture. And just, you know, but I technically, according to the verbiage on my document, which I should probably triple check, technically don't need to, but I do that anyway, just out of consideration and such. So that's another thing you have to think when you're building your business is all the legal stuff. Like not only how are you setting up your company in terms of what, you know, setup are you using, whether it's an LLC or a partnership or a sole proprietorship, but also how are you going to do transactions with your clients and what are you liable for and what are you not liable for, and how are you protecting yourself legally when it comes to any sort of thing, especially when you get into weddings, but also with portraits. So to make sure that you have verbiage in place that takes care of you too.
So we just crashed lbobi.com as well.
Good job, Jeff and Allison.
That's hilarious. So let's just touch on cost of goods sold. Like what kind of products to use? A lot of people, product selection is a huge thing.
Should I go over here?
Yeah, let's go over here.
Okay,
We know we're going to move over. Look at this. We haven't even we haven't fired a click yet.
Yeah,
Nobody's shooting. This is all happening and nobody's shooting yet. This is just what we're starting with. We're talking about what you need to do to run, maintain, and take care and grow a successful business.
We should all up our prices.
Everybody out there, just clap for yourself that you're doing this. I'm serious. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of stuff. And we're like a quarter in. So cost of sales. What kind of products do you want to select? I would suggest a couple things. You can go just on the products you love. You can go just on the products that are great cost savings for you. You can go just on products that are an absolute fantastic cost of goods sold versus a price to your client ratio. Or you can find some sort of middle ground there. But the point is to track what your cost of goods sold, track what you're paying for. We carry Asuka books. We've been doing that since years before I ever met Kevin Kubota, who he's basically the rep for Asuka book.
Yeah.
But another ridiculously nice person. But Asuka Book, for me, has been a really brilliant client option because it allows me to have those sales sessions where the clients say, I can't fit one more thing on my wall. And I say, well, you don't have to, because we have this book. And then you can do some sort of things where the design is 100% up to you, and you can do layouts where the design is completely just image, and really almost kind of traditional in that respect. Or you can do funky things with swirling and background and textures or whatever the case may be. We have several different design options in our studio so the client can look and tell me what their style is. I don't want to fly in blind on this. They either love this kind of look or that kind of look.
They have a designer too, Red Boot Design.
Yeah, Red Boot Design as well.
So
Yep. And of course, you can always there's a whole bunch of different design options you can do with layouts and stuff. But the big thing that I find at least with the Asuka books is the markup ratio. No, you're right. That's it. Yeah, I think you say Azuka, but it's spelled Asuka. Okay. The big markup, the thing you can do with the Asuka books is if you are sitting down and designing page by page yourself, you have to factor in the time that you're putting in and think about whether the cost of goods sold is worth it to you. What I do is I outsource the design. And then I take that and the cost of the product, and I put all that together, and the cost, of course, of the time that I put into that portion of the portrait session, and I come up with a figure that I go ahead and multiply times 3 and then charge my clients. So my Asuka books, I think the 10 by 10s are about $1,250, $1,350, something like that. The physical cost of that book is significantly less, but the design time you have to think about. So what you can do in that situation, specifically with the Asuka book, because when you order one thing and you have it printed and you do secondary printings of it, they'll become significantly cheaper. And for you, you can then say to your client, okay, it's $1,350 for a 10 by 10, but if you want to get another book for the grandparents, it's half the price, and then so on and so forth. So you can make, and that's all gravy. That the additional revenue that comes in is just completely flat on top because the cost of the book is not that high. It's your design efforts and your design time. And if you've already put that out there and you can reproduce it, that's great business. Anything that you're building in your business that's scalable, you do it one time and you get multiple levels of income and revenue and sales from it, is something that you want to be paying a lot of attention to. How many things in my business can I spend all this time and effort and focus on and know that I can hand it off and it can constantly be resold? You know?
The grandma book is a great idea. I'm going to put that one in the... That's a good idea. Design it once, sell it many times. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're really good for that. And also I find that if I have a problem or I'm running late or I have definitely done the call to Asuka book where I'm like, okay, first of all, it's not you, it's me. I was supposed to order this 4 weeks ago, and now it's X's birthday, and I need this in 2 weeks. And to be able to have those relationships where your vendors can save your patuka, you know? And I've had that multiple times where I've had a situation where, like, I should have done this. It's not my fault. It's your fault. Can you help me? And talk to the right person who can put things in place to help you.
That's what your product workflows will help you too. Your product workflow, so you're not forgetting something that needs to...
Yeah, absolutely. What?
You said it's not my fault, it's your fault. Did you mean the opposite?
I totally meant the opposite.
Okay.
Wow, that was blamey. That was subconsciously blamey. I meant to say it the other way, but I really thought it's still not my fault. It's not you, it's me, is what I would want to start out. And I do start conversations out like that, a lot. Like, I should have done this. That's why I think vendor relationships, do we say that about managing vendor relationships and caring for vendor relationships? That's really, really important because it's a little bit more than just like who do you pick to do what. Great, go outsource to them. These vendors, you build relationships with them because they're your team. They are your studio staff by extension. And anything that they do right or do wrong reflects on you. And that really is a big deal. So if I send a printout 4 times to a lab and it comes back 4 times all messed up, my client thinks I'm slow or I don't know how to print anything or I did a terrible job, even though it's not my fault. So I want to be really careful about who I choose to do my printing and what kind of response time I have and how much they care about any sort of issues we have, how much they're going to really jump through hoops to fix things and turn them around on time. So I think also, honestly, your FedEx, your UPS, anybody who's that person who's delivering products to you, that's a really good relationship to care for too, because they will go the extra mile when things are lost or you can't find them or you need them to come in sooner or whatever. Just realize that everybody that you're doing business with from a vendor relationship perspective really has an effect on your image when it comes to your client. And I didn't mean that like literally.
Tamara?
Yes.
Bench Photo in Twitter would like to know if there's a sweet spot for the number of products you carry so clients don't get overwhelmed.
Yes. I think there's two things in place. I want to offer my clients a good variety of products. So if for some reason they say I don't do this or I don't do this, I have this. I don't want to overwhelm them and have them walk in and say, have you guys ever eaten at Cheesecake Factory? Like I open that menu and I am full. I don't even know where to start. This is exhausting. I think I need to buy a watch now because there's like an ad on page 6 and everything is fried. Thank you. A great thing to get at Cheesecake Factory, by the way, is they have those chicken lettuce wraps, but I'm a vegetarian, I don't eat chicken, and you can get portobello mushroom instead. It's a very light, good product to get when you're overwhelmed by the menu. Yeah, but it's the same thing and everybody's different, but for me, if I walk up to an all-you-can-eat buffet and somebody hands me a plate and it's all you can eat and there's all those products, I feel so intimidated by how many choices I have. My stomach closes up with nerves and I can't eat anything. Like I want you to just give me a little something on a plate and thank you very much.
Well, especially when you don't know about photography or you have no idea what you
If you don't
want.
know what any of these products are, you don't know what the differentiation is between them, you don't know necessarily what's a good value or a poor value, or so by that, my pricing list is a card that looks like this. That's my entire pricing list. What my pricing list used to be about 6 or 5 years ago was something that looked like Santa's list of who's good and bad. I mean, it was just like, okay, here's every option you can ever get, and let me show you because I want you to know I can do anything you need. And instead what I was saying is like, okay, make these choices from a million different products and tell me what you want. So my pricing structure is such that instead of saying a 7 by 10 costs this, an 8 by 10 costs this, an 8 by 12 costs this, a 12 by 16 costs this, 8 by 10 and under. What's your next price break? 12 by 16 and under, or 16 by 20 and under, 20 by 24 and under, whatever the case may be, because the cost differences within those are so slight. And then and most of the people then will get images a little larger, and I like them to get images a little larger because it shows off the work more and then leads to more referrals when people see them in their home. So I have an incentive for them to go a little bit larger, and the cost difference is so slight that I'm excited about that.
Cost difference between
my cost, the cost
your
of,
cost.
because again, all those costs of my time and effort and physical labor is already accounted for, no matter what, as I go into those prices, and then it's the cost of the product.
And decision making is one of the highest anxiety producing things that humans experience. So the less decisions you make your clients make, the more decisions you can make for them, it'll result in better sales.
Perfect example. After we finished that lighting scenario yesterday and everything that I walked up to didn't work, and we had to go back and assemble it properly and make it all work. At the end of the day, everyone's like, where do you want to go to dinner? I'm like, oh my God, that just freaked me out. I can't decide that. Somebody would just tell me where I'm going and I'll fall into a car, please. That would be great. Because you get maxed out, and you can't make decisions properly. And guess what else that's doing? Guess what else it is when you have a bunch of choices in front of you? Where is your decision coming from? From here or from here?
From here.
And do I want people looking at their images thinking here? No, I want it all here. So I want to take that off the place. And you'll see that when we do the little mini sales session. I want it to be about like the images. That's what they're buying, and that's what I want them to think about and care about. And not even just the images, it's more like the emotion tied into it, the experience and the relationships they're having and all that sort of thing.
So Tamara, I recently had a client where, and I have too many products, but they were only looking at like just a handful of really simple products like 5x7s and 4x6s and so on and so forth. And the woman had gone to my site to do the purchasing, and it was very simple. And this is a brilliant person that I was dealing with, and she looked at the stuff and then wrote back to me and she's like, you know what? I just looked at it and it was like just a little bit too confusing. Can you just send me a disc? Because I'm used to going to this one site and making books and building books myself.
Okay.
This is a very busy person. Very busy. But yet that was her comfort zone of like, just send me a disc of the images, and because I build my own books. I know that's got to be time consuming for her. What's my best tool to combat that mentality?
Okay, so there's two things there. Do you know whether she enjoys building her own books?
That's a great question. I think there is some enjoyment, probably.
Okay.
Maybe that's
so that
part
might be
of it.
something that she doesn't necessarily want taken off her plate, that she enjoys doing that.
Okay.
I had a bride who, when it came down to doing her album, one of the things she was most looking forward to in all of her wedding was building her album. And she said to me, would you mind if I did all that myself? And I said, I love you. Here you go.
Yeah.
Just respecting the fact that some people get enjoyment out of that and they want to start from somewhere and do the rest themselves. And that's one of the reasons I do have a Buy the Rights to Reproduce DVD as an option on my price list. And I said this the other day, but just to be very clear, I don't ever sell the rights. The rights belong to me. I sell the rights to reproduce. And I'm really straightforward about that. When I do hand over a DVD, I make sure I let the clients know verbally which labs are good options and which I would stay away from. And I do that verbally because I don't want to put it in writing in case labs change management. I also don't want to be insulting or rude to current labs that just don't have the standards I want in place. And then I'll sell them the rights to reproduce. And I have that sold at a price that when I do make that sale, and that if that were to be the only thing I sold, I'm pretty excited about it. I'm like, yeah, sweet, that works for me.
Okay, so inversely, what if it is a comfort zone issue?
All right, wait, pause on that question. I just want to say one last thing so I don't miss saying this, is that when I do sell the rights to reproduce, I also have an option in my pricing packages that once you reach a certain amount of revenue that I feel is like, okay, I'm feeling really good at this, then we'll include the rights to reproduce as an option. And for that reason, it's like I'll have people that are within $1,000 and will buy more product because they know they're going to get that too. Okay, so please tell me what you're going to say.
So inversely, if this person doesn't really that much enjoy making the books, that's just their comfort zone.
Okay, right. So you're asking like, what do you
how
do
I combat that?
Combat that.
Yeah, because that's
okay.
their.
I would
used
make
to this. I'm used to Walgreens.
Yeah, I would then make sure that when you're selling those DVDs and you make that purchase, you're completely content with the price. I would make the price something that you feel really reflects the value that you put into that work. And I think that's something that when I talk to people and they feel like they're going to, well, I'm not really going to do a lot. I'm just going to put it on DVD and I'm going to hand it to them. Well, you know how much you just did? Let's talk about what you just did.
Yeah.
You just did this. And then you say, well, I'm not really giving them anything. I mean, you just gave them all that time and consideration and thought and strategy and decision making, and you got stressed out. You just did a ton. You just did a ton. And that's the thing. When it comes to sales, I'm going to just jumpstart and say this now before we get to our sales, that everything that you're doing here, where's your profit coming in?
From your sales.
This part. Everything you're going to do with every session you do, you're going to do every time regardless of how much you sell at the end. So why would you do 90% of all the work and then get to that last 10% and say, oh, whatever, okay, here you go. I sat down a few years ago and looked at a spreadsheet and thought, let me calculate all my session fees and see what I get at the end of the year by the average amount of sales I've done this year. The average amount of sessions I had this year, what did that session fee come to? And then let me take my average sales and tally that up. And the session fees collected all the way across the board were like a drop in the bucket. They were nothing compared to the revenue brought in by the sales. So the session fee for me is not where I'm making my money. The session fee for me, and I don't mean to say that arrogantly, like that's not what I mean. I mean in comparison, where are you making your money? If you feel like, well, they paid me the session fee already, so I got that or something, you're still going to be doing all that effort. And that's what convinced me to make sure I sat down with every client when it comes to sales, because before that I didn't. Before that I was so underwater with all of this, by the time I got to the sales, I was exhausted. And I was just like, you know what, just place an order online and we're good, And what that did is that made me an order taker, not a sales consultant, not somebody who actually sat down and discussed the art with them and talked about what was best for them. I just took the order, whatever it might be, and I ran it through and they got their prints. And that meant that 90% of the work I did, I was leaving on the table regardless. And that 10% is where I should have kicked it in and said, okay, I've already done all this. We're in the fourth quarter of the game, and this is going to win it or lose it, and I've done everything it took to get here. Why would I just kind of sit down on the bench and say, whatever?
Yeah. Thank you.
Question for you about the digital files. So I know that there's some photographers that, because the world is so digital now, that they will sell, they sell all their prints and then they'll have the rights to reproduce, or for a lesser price, they'll sell just the smaller resolution files just for people to share online.
Uh-huh.
Do you think it's worth it to like have, the big files on, you can buy them for this much, or for $200 you can have all smaller, low resolution files just for Facebooking? Do you think that would be, like, I know for me, I would, when I pay my photographer for my family, I always buy the disc because I don't have any family around. I don't so for us, it's all about sharing things online. So without those files, it's not even almost worth me taking the photos other than for my own documentation of my family.
Right. So two things. One, when it comes to Facebook, so as a whole, I mean, obviously I think a lot of you may know, or if you don't know, you should know, that you can now print from Facebook. So any image that you put online on Facebook, somebody can actually print that. Did you guys know that?
But if you make the files
that's
so
big to
low
know.
resolution that if they printed, they would look
right. But I want
unrecognizable.
to make sure people do know that, because
I have
that's actually
seen people
critically
do
important. They have a service now that you click, yes, I want to print this.
Yeah.
And so any image that you're uploading, when you think I'm just uploading a regular image, and of course Facebook's going to resize it and it's going to look like this, no, they can download an image and print it. So realize that that's now a relatively new functionality. I think it's just a couple months old, 6 weeks old or something. And so the first thing I would consider is what you said about making sure it's low resolution and you have some sort of watermark on it.
Right.
So
you
that
do-
if they do print it, you have that consideration.
Sorry, you do watermark everything.
Okay.
Well, first let me ask you.
Yes.
Because a question from Trevor Morris in Twitter. Do you recommend using social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc.?
Yes.
You use all of these things
Do we put that on there? Social
Not on
media,
there yet.
Twitter, Facebook.
as a marketing
Okay.
tool?
Because after Twitter, you now have 1 hour left in your day
If that.
to go on Facebook.
Right.
Yes, I
And you're-
strongly recommend social media in my business for marketing because nearly all my clients are on Facebook. Like nearly all my clients.
Right.
The few that are not on Facebook are very, very proud about the fact they're not.
I think 1 in 13 people in the world is on Facebook.
1 in 13 in the world on Facebook.
I think that's the last.
Why does that
statistic
sound
I
like a
heard.
low ratio to me? That seems low.
It's 500
does
million.
How many people in the world
Well,
have a
that
computer?
does sound low, but then if you think about
Yeah.
like
Well, there's almost-
the older
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
There's almost 7 billion people, and there's 500 million on
That's
Facebook.
crazy.
or something
That's
like
crazy.
that.
I'm so glad I got on the ground up with Facebook and invested all that money early on.
So do you watermark all of your images that you put on Facebook?
I don't upload anything to Facebook anymore.
Okay.
But that's not a conscious decision so much as a very busy person. I didn't want to do anything else until I figured out the best way to do it. And I think I know the best way to do it now, which is basically run an action where you watermark, you resize, you've got it small scale, not just low resolution, but small scale, because you can obviously still print a low res file as a 4x6 just fine.
So what would you suggest for small scale? Like what numbers are you talking?
The exact number. Somebody weigh in on what a small scale
I mean,
image
1,000?
is. Yeah, that's not my area of expertise. Someone wants to weigh in on what the safe size is to upload to Facebook in terms of resolution, DPI, scalability that wouldn't be printed as a pretty good looking 4x6. Please let us know.
And I'm wondering if you can turn off that feature on Facebook that they
I
cannot
think
print
there
your images.
is something that you can do where you can, and I saw this post by, I think it was, God, where did I see it? I saw a post that had an action that you can run to make sure that that wasn't something that happened to your images.
Hey,
So
Tamara,
that's out there.
but can I ask you, would you consider kind of what they were talking about before, just selling the image so that if you do put it on Facebook, rather than running the risk that they're going to print it regardless and print it really poorly, just have it online and like you've made your money on that image, and if you put it online, you sort of concede to the fact that it will get printed.
Anything you put on your blog, you're conceding to the fact that anybody can copy and paste it and print it. The question here is, what is the quality of the print going to be and the value put on that, you know? So you're making that decision anytime you show any image on your blog.
I mean, and I think everything is 72 DPI on, online. So
Although
there's-
people upload 300 DPI images to Facebook all the time.
They do. Someone's saying 720 long edge would be
400 by 600
okay. 400 by 600
as well. I would, yeah.
So-
I'll go
Yeah,
with that.
I mean, those are considerations, but all in all, social media, mostly what I'm doing is I'm linking to images and blog posts and such. I think I spoke earlier about comment aggregators, how we're needing to get into a place where if you're online and you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, and you're on LinkedIn, and you're on Instagram, and you're all over the place, and you're on your blog, and you're uploading an image to all of these resources, and you have basically 5 different audiences commenting, you're fragmenting any sort of base you have in terms of that will help galvanize an excited response in one collective area. You don't have that anymore. You've got yay, 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 as opposed to yay, you know? And so I think some sort of, comment aggregator system, those are what's coming in. I have that on my new blog coming in, and I think that you're gonna see more and more of that coming about, because I think we need new solutions to social media to be able to consolidate all the places we are. Absolutely. But social media, I think, is incredibly important. And again, a lot of it is like, I've had clients, like I did a post on my website about probably maybe a month ago, 3 weeks ago, about a client I photographed who also is a friend, Lindsay and Steve Wojciechowski. And I did a post about how she had this crazy experience where she got cancer and she got a test back and it was terrible, but then it was not, and it was a bad read, and like just the incredible tumultuous whirlwind experience of her life. And I included some images because immediately after we found out that she was actually going to be okay, we went out and did this photo shoot as I was like, we must do this. And actually she called me and she said, when it was in the worst of it, and she's like, I need a session as soon as possible. And I was like, please let this be my gift. And we went out and did a session, and it was so amazing because it was real, and it was literally celebrating life. We were genuinely out there photographing their life and their family, because she just had a little baby, and he was months old, when all this was happening, when she went in for this major surgery and everything. I put a post like that on my blog, and then I put a link to it on Twitter and Facebook, and it was a celebration of them. I was excited to be able to celebrate them. And I heard from like her relatives and her best friends and the friends she hadn't talked to from high school or whatever it was, not high school, but sometime that she hadn't seen in a long time. And then the National Association for Professional Child Photography, and NAPCP, is a great little organization organizations, yeah. A great organization about consolidating child photographers. They ran a link on their blog about it, with kind of an overview. And this post ended up getting all this traction, and all these sweet, loving comments, and a lot of people saying they're praying for Lindsay. And regardless of your beliefs in that regard, I truly believe collective energy is impactful. And so you think about like, okay, so I just put out a post about photographs, and now we have all this goodwill and harmony and beautiful feelings for Lindsay and people who cried for her.
Right.
That's incredible. That's by reaching via social media. So,
But still keeping it all in one location.
Yeah. And I mentioned NAPCP. If you guys get a chance to check that out, it's a really sweet, lovely organization for child photographers.
If you, for people that are just starting out and they can't really afford to go and be in every one of these organizations,
everything I just listed was free, by the way. I was just talking about social media.
Oh, no, but like NAPCP and PPA and WPPI,
yes.
Which one do you think would be the best to join, if you had to choose one? I mean, if you can only afford to be in one of them, is there one that you think?
I'm not copping out. It really depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for only business-minded advice where you can get classes and certifications, I would say this. If you're looking for support and people to commiserate with, I would say this. If you're looking for, a kick-ass convention.
Oops. You're fine.
Bleep.
If you're looking for a super duper convention, I would check out this. It really is about what you're looking for. So if you ask that question in the context of what's the best resource for this, I could tell you.
Okay.
But just what's the best? It's what's the best flavor of ice cream? Depends on if you like pistachio or chocolate. Yeah. Well, clearly, Nutella
gelato.
Gelato. Hello.
All right, I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah. Because that really is specific.
Have you ever experimented with or want to comment on social purchasing that's happening? I know here in Seattle, Groupon companies where...
Right. What's my comment about Groupon? They had a great deal on a horse riding thing that I thought was fantastic.
Have you used it, and your feelings about it?
I've actually just gotten into the Groupon thing lately, and things like online, like Deals Plus, where they have a one-day deal and all that sort of stuff. Some of them are fantastic. Some of them are really good, and they're meant to be introductory offers of sorts, but you can get a lot of value out of it. As to whether or not I would associate that with my business, no, because I want my business to be about lower volume and understand understanding that there's going to be more of a cost associated with that. I actually have never done a coupon for my business. I don't do kind of like specials or something like that. And it's not that I don't think, and I've seen, or again, I keep having to say this because I've seen photographers who do that to great effect, and they have a really high-end name, and they do fantastic and all that sort of stuff. But firstly, for my business, it didn't fit my business model, so I don't go in that direction in terms of taking advantage of kind of like, I don't want to be associated with, because of the brand I built, I don't want to be associated with like, you can get me for free, or I'm half off today, or, you know, it just doesn't really fit with my business model and how I've branded. And again, it's not to say that I don't see an opportunity like that come up, and it's fabulous, and I think it'd be really smart for my business, but I have to make that second decision of, is this consistent with my branding? And if it's not, I need to skip it.